Okay, looks like we're good.
Sweet.
Got some people in the room.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
All right. Give it a second for a few more people to get in here if we need to.
No, we haven't started. We're just about to start.
All right. Cool. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. This is day 4 of Crypto Fashion Week. First off, I'd like to thank our sponsors, sponsor Luxo, for being an awesome partner during this event. Today, we are joined by Karina Knobs from the Dematerialized. She's going to be giving us a little rundown on what they're doing over there and has some cool announcements as well. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this session. Nervous, but excited. I've seen the numbers kind of go up in the audience, and I know there's a lot of people waiting to find out one of our announcements. So
awesome. Well, yeah, so grateful to have you be a part of this event.
Super cool. Shall I share my screen or give me the nod?
Yeah. So I'll get your screen going. Let's see. All right, so you're up.
Et voila. Well, thank you for that introduction, and thank you everybody who's tuning in at this precise moment in time. I decided to call this session, Does That Dress Come in Digital? And I can't actually take credit for this terminology. This is actually a journalist whose name has just escaped my mind because I'm nervous, but he wrote an article 2 years ago that says, does that dress come in digital? And the reason I think it resonates with me is because I can imagine that happening in the not too distant future, that this is a kind of a format or a way that we will be consuming fashion. It will become part of our decision-making process. You might as well know, for those of you who are kind of in the fashion community, that this is an Iris van Herpen dress. And again, the reason that I wanted to include this on the first page of the presentation is that in every single piece of consumer research that we do, particularly obviously with the fashionista type consumer, it's the most desired brand. The second is Alexander McQueen that people want to experience in digital. And I'm sure you might be able to kind of realize, I guess, things which are a little bit out of reach, whether that's from a price perspective or also potentially a garment like this isn't something you would wear to go and buy a pint of milk or a loaf of bread. Therefore, that kind of like escapism, I think, is something which is very attractive to us. Also because many of us have been in our homes for much longer than possible in the last little while. Yes, thank you, Ben. It was Ben's name. Thank you for adding that in. So what I want to take you through is a little bit of the anatomy of digital fashion. I know some of you are here to listen to me. Some of you are here because you want a secret code. And I'll tell you more about that in kind of 2 slides. But yeah, what I want to kind of talk you through is, what is digital fashion? How do you make digital fashion? Who's into digital fashion? What can you use it for? What are the kind of signals in the marketplace? And then introduce you to Dematerialized and a tiny little bit on WTF is an NFT, a word that we're hearing a lot at this precise moment in time. And again, just to explain you a little bit about this photograph, this was my first ever piece of digital fashion, which I bought. And this is a pair of digital pants by Tribute brand. So the pants on the bottom are digital. The lace top that I'm wearing is physical. And I paid €7 for these last March, and they've actually now gone up in price about 300%, which is kind of interesting. And then also when Tribute Brands got a lot of publicity when it was taking off during the summer in particular last year, I ended up, this photograph went viral because I got interviewed by the New York Post. So I think it had a kind of funny story basically to it. The purpose of this session or this workshop is that I hope that those of you who might stay for the whole session is that you will hopefully have some new feelings about digital fashion. There's a lot, I think, of misconception, confusion, that kind of stuff about what digital fashion is and what it can do, so that I hope that potentially in a positive way that I can give you a kind of positive outlook for this particular category. Now, I know a lot of you that are on the stream are here because you want to get access to our beta platform at the Dematerialized, and I'm happy to present that this is your special code. I have just tweeted it out as well, and those of you who have registered for Crypto Fashion Week will also get an email very shortly with this code as well. Just to give you a little bit of detail about what the code will give you. As you can see, the clue is in the name, so it's valid for 24 hours, 48 hours, I can't read. And so that's from today till 5 p.m. CET on Saturday. And you use this code to enter the dematerialized.com. And you can also use this as a payment code to receive our first ever fashion NFT, which is the Hex Jerzo, which was created by our designer Sheeran. You will also have exclusive access and opportunity to purchase this monolith, which we just dropped on the Dematerialized today, which was designed and created by Mega Retiner. So I will kind of glance a little bit to the questions as well up on here. And as soon as I finish this session, I'll be jumping back on Twitter and emails to make sure anybody has any questions. But this is the code you need to get into the Dematerialized, to claim your NFT, and it's all supported and minted by the Luxo blockchain. So hopefully I can see there's some people saying they're in. Excellent, excellent. So I guess on to the subject of the day, which is the anatomy of digital fashion. And maybe just to take you back in time to like explain where I kind of first got aware of digital fashion. I was traveling around the world. I took a 6-month sabbatical, and the Carling's collection dropped in 2018, and it was amazing to see all the traction and the disbelief, and people are like, why would someone play for clothes that kind of don't exist? That happened again. Wait, I'll tell you that story in a moment. First of all, this is a work in progress definition for me about what digital fashion is. So I describe digital fashion as a computer generated representation of a garment or accessory. It can be experienced, and I'll explain some of the different ways that you can experience digital fashion later in the presentation. And the exciting thing is that you can have this experience across not just digital aspects. So it's not just, digital fashion isn't just for virtual worlds or metaverses or gaming. Increasingly now, there are new ways that we can interact with digital and physical layers together. And I think that's super interesting. And again, many people in the audience are kind of very up on the kind of NFT and blockchain literature and situations. But digital fashion, when it's created as an NFT, can also be traded as an asset, just as we see in the crypto art space. You can have it, purchase it, and it can go up in value. And I'll explain more of that in a little while. And so when you think about the different ways that you can wear or, again, experience digital fashion, you can DTA, download it to Avatar, again, a kind of relatively new kind of terminology, and or you can kind of track it or layer it on a real body. Now, that kind of real-time tracking is something which is a bit like the holy grail of digital fashion at the moment. There are many people working all over the world on trying to get the right solution of real-time rendering and making sure that it's realistic, just as we've seen much of the improvements in augmented reality for makeup and things like that, etc. So a little bit of a kind of like history lesson. If we look here at this kind of very super basic kind of timeline of some of the things that have happened in digital fashion, I think it's a bit crazy that fashion in many ways has been actually very slow to adopt kind of digital fashion, and even digital in its kind of wider context as well. We can see, as you can see here, like a bit of a wave. So there was an initial wave in 2007 where we saw brands like H&M, ASOS, Jean-Paul Gaultier, many kind of people at all different levels of the market did collaborations with Sims. And obviously you can see the kind of the pixelation and the way that people were kind of viewing or experiencing garments at that particular time. It was good, but it wasn't marvelous. I think one of the things that I'd like to kind of draw your attention to is if we look at H&M and Armani and their offering of $12 and $25. One of the things that's super interesting about digital is the kind of democratization of kind of pricing, of the offer, etc. So it's that kind of price level, and you can see it again further on when we look at Louis Vuitton and League of Legends and Nike inside Fortnite. The price barrier is much lower than it's ever been before. And that is both exciting and scary, mostly for brands, because many of the brands that we speak to on a regular basis really need kind of like help and understanding to say, how do you price a digital collection? And there isn't necessarily a perfect dynamic for that at the moment. What we have seen is that a lot of the pricing mechanisms are hyper dynamic. They're very demand driven. I think if we look in the next section, I'm sure again many of you will be familiar with the CryptoKitty phenomenon. And again, what was interesting about that when it broke through into mainstream press. So here, the CryptoKitty is an NFT, a non-fungible token that gets traded in various different NFT marketplaces. It can be bred and things like that. And the reason that this one was so expensive is because it was a first generation CryptoKitty. So it was the first of its kind, a kind of pure breed, if you like, just as we would see a higher value for a pedigree animal in the real life. And again, this was a breakthrough moment because it hit the publicity, mainstream publicity. And again, people were, the person who purchased this was ridiculed for, why would you pay this much money for something that doesn't exist, and for something where the utility of that wasn't super clear. I think if you fast forward that to some of the crazy numbers that we've seen happening within the crypto art space in the last 3 months in particular, although we see maybe there's a clearer utility for a digital art piece that can be displayed in different places, we start to see these barriers really being kind of like broken down, basically. The Carlings example is the one that I said when I started my journey of telling you how I got obsessed with digital fashion. So this happened in November 2018. And a kind of humorous story behind it was that Carlings is a relatively Northern European-centric fashion business who actually created this campaign because they hadn't launched an e-commerce platform yet. And they worked together with Vice Virtue, the creative agency, to create a campaign to tell people about the launch of their e-commerce without kind of telling people, okay, it's 2018 and we're only just launching e-commerce now. So they came up with this kind of what seemed crazy at the time idea where there was around about 7 to 10 items, which ranged from €5 to kind of like €35. And the mechanism or the way that it worked, it was just like a traditional e-commerce. You picked the thing you liked, you transacted it into your basket, and then you sent them an image of you that they would Photoshop. And they had a creative team who very lovingly spent hours to make a very good representation of a consumer with the Carlings garment photoshopped on top of them. And as you can imagine, because that's quite a labor-intensive process, the collection sold out within 2 weeks. And one of the reasons, obviously, it sold out is because that's not feasible to do at scale. And so they had around about kind of 5 or 6 digital dressing or digital tailoring, as they call it, that they could do on a kind of daily basis. Carlings then went on in 2019 to do a different digital collection. So this time they created an augmented T-shirt, so a physical T-shirt that had a piece of text or kind of print here, which was used in conjunction with the Instagram AR filter kit. And what that meant was that, actually I have one, I could have worn it today, is that when you hold your phone over it, you get various different filters which are overlaid onto your T-shirt. And I have an example of it kind of further on in the class. I think the Louis Vuitton and the League of Legends and the Fortnite one kind of talk for themselves. I think it's interesting that now on an almost weekly basis in the last 2 months, we see constant new announcements between luxury brands and games publishers about collaborations in different areas. So we're seeing these kind of worlds coming very much more closely together. The next one, so Tribute brand, is the one that I said was the pants that I bought. And one of the reasons that they've been particularly successful is their marketing strategy. So Gala, one of the founders, was very particular, one, about the style or the aesthetic. So they call themselves cyber contactless fashion. And they definitely kind of own this quite specific look, which is shiny, futuristic, slightly otherworldly. And if you go to their Instagram, you can see that the creators and influencers that they've decided to work with have been very specifically chosen to kind of like represent that brand. And they also have, I think you can see the demand of their product as well, because it's gone up in value. They've with the demand for their product, they now ask more money for each of their pieces. I think their most expensive item is around about 900 or 700 euros. And then, again, another company that cannot be missed out when you talk about the history of digital fashion is The Fabricant. And this is probably one of the most well-known examples that this iridescent dress, this was actually the picture of the lady who's wearing the dress is the owner. So her husband bought this for her as a gift, as a token of his love and affection. And very similar to the Crypto Kitties experience, this hit the mainstream publicity with, again, that same headline: why are people spending money on clothes that don't exist? But on the positive side, I guess the kind of bad PR isn't, you know what I'm trying to say, the terminology for that. No PR is bad PR. It's not that, but anyway. This has done really good kind of, I don't know, positive and negative, I suppose. I'll explain that because I have a section on the challenges of what's happening within here. What's kind of significant, again, about this is that this one was also sold as an NFT on a blockchain as well. So I think those two kind of higher priced pieces that you can see have that kind of security and authenticity behind them. And then another one very important to mention is Artifacts. If you don't follow them already, I would definitely suggest to follow their kind of skills in how they present their products are kind of second to none within the marketplace. And again, this was a boundary breaking digital twin campaign where they had a physical sneaker and a digital sneaker that sold for £13,000 in November. And then down at the bottom, again, fashionistas who are in the audience will recognize this as a Valentino for Moncler creation, which the real life value is around about 35,000 euros. And Ada is a kind of new generation fashion game, and their digital version, which is like highly deeply representative or hyper real, is $17. So again, we're seeing this kind of like reversal of pricing effectively. And then if we look to 2021, what's kind of been happening? Well, I think Gucci are one of the most prominent brands who are kind of open to taking risks and experimenting, so trying out different things with different platforms. If any of you haven't tried Zepeto, it's a kind of cute avatar platform. I'll show you my version of that kind of later on in the presentation. The Pokemon Go collaboration with North Face is something that actually has created a bit of a divide in terms of, was it a helpful collaboration? Was it an unhelpful collaboration? And I'll leave it up to the kind of like audience. Thank you. Yes, all PR is good PR is the thing that I was trying to say. On the top left-hand side, this is a photo shoot for Officiel with Dress X. And on the right-hand side, a new duo out of London, Ouroboros, who have got a lot of attention for their biomimicry kind of collection as well, and also a collaborator with the company Dressed. And then Artifact, that I just told you about on the last page, just recently, last week, launched their first non-sneaker product. So this is their jacket, which is sold on multiple different NFT platforms, and also has a number of different outputs post-purchase. So wearing it in different metaverses, having a bespoke fitting of it for you from Dress X, for example. So what types of digital fashion are there out there? This is a kind of work in progress research from me. So if there's anyone in the audience that has any suggestions on how to improve this, please kind of let me know. So the way that I've tried to categorize it is thinking about, is the garment digital or physical? And is the environment physical or digital? And thinking about that as the kind of premise for how you create that specific piece. So I guess the one which is most familiar for people, which is skins within a game, or again, this kind of relatively newer terminology, download direct to avatar, or D2A. It sounds like a Star Wars character. And so here, this is an example of Gucci with their Animal Crossing. I think what's interesting about this section is that it's a learned behavior. It's a stable marketplace. It's something which is known and understood. But again, it's kind of been slow for, as I mentioned, for fashion and gamers or game publishers to work as closely together as they're starting to do now. The next one along is digital garment, but in a physical environment. So here, providing an AR or a CGI layer. And one of the ways that we see that kind of most clearly or obviously is the use of a magic mirror. So this is a very old but kind of classic version created by Holition for Uniqlo, where you have a jacket that has an NFC tag in it. So you don't have to have an app, you don't need to press anything, and you press the thing on the screen and the color of the jacket changes. As you might imagine, this is expensive because it has a significant kind of hardware cost next to it. But my prediction is that as these costs start to reduce, we'll start to see many more brands, and there are brands like Ralph Lauren, Tommy Hilfiger, etc., who have experimented with magic mirror technology previously. The next one, so I'm calling this one soft wearables, and this is the example of Carling's second collection. A few people, I think I'm just looking, there's some news, yeah, the beta code that you can find on our Twitter, or kind of like but basically go to the Twitter. There you go. Someone's added it in the chat. Thank you. Soft wearables is, again, very much in a nascent development. I could probably count on only two hands the number of companies who are using this augmented kind of layer for different products. And it's a shame, because actually this is something which is relatively cost effective. And I think with Apple's recent announcement of finally getting a timeline for when Apple AR glasses are going to come out, this is something which is going to become much more synonymous with how we experience and interact with digital fashion. So it's not just through this, or it's not just through perhaps waiting for someone to Photoshop ourselves in a piece. The next one is around physical products in a digital environment. And I've called this one kind of like AI or GAN. You can probably tell by the way I talk, I'm not a technologist, I'm a strategist and a marketer. But I see that this terminology, unfortunately, the screenshot from this organization, Super Personal, aren't around anymore. But their promise, or the basis of what they were creating, is kind of similar to deep fake technology. Or if you think of a lot of the videos that people are posting around at the moment with themselves as Britney Spears or Scarface, where you have the original kind of movie image or like physical film text, and your face is superimposed onto that piece. And I guess one of the criticisms of this is that it doesn't necessarily help with that issue of fit, especially when you're buying something online. But what it does do is potentially create an experience. It potentially creates something which is fun, because you can get a feel as to whether, does this suit you? Does it suit your personality? Is it something that you might want to try digitally and then wear physically or invest in physically, basically? So how do you make digital fashion? There are three kind of main ways to use or kind of create digital fashion. The first one is perhaps the most widely used, which is pure virtualization. And here you would use a program like Clo3D or Browseware or many of the other kind of like players in the marketplace, and you would create the piece pixel by pixel, effectively. You might have a pattern, a physical pattern that's based from, but the whole thing is computer generated through this particular software. And the other option, so photogrammetry on the bottom left-hand side, is something that we see a lot in the creation of avatars. If you look, for example, at the recent avatar that was created of Bella Hadid for Mugler, you can watch the behind-the-scenes video, and you can see the photogrammetry process that she went through. And as you may not be surprised to know, this is expensive because of the amount of technology that's kind of involved within it. There are a number of companies, again, startups, that are looking to figure out how you can scale this and how you can make it more achievable for different brands, and also kind of more speedily as well. And then on the right-hand side, we have scanning. So kind of slightly similar to the photogrammetry, but not exactly the same. And I guess this is one of the areas that people are very excited about at the moment, because of the technology that's becoming better and cheaper every time we get new versions of these, for example. So LiDAR technology, which is in our phones. So in the not too distant near future, it could be possible for us to make digital human versions of ourselves, which are pretty realistic. We could create digital copies of things that are in our houses, whether that's garments or things that we love, in order to kind of keep them sacred and such like. So what can we do with it? Again, this is one of the things that people are not kind of terribly sure about, and again, sometimes kind of critique digital fashion for. So the first place that you can wear it, which again is driven by, I guess, the history and the kind of skins audience, is wearing it in a game or a metaverse. So within a fashion context, Dressed is probably one of the well-known kind of high fashion games that people are most familiar with. And whilst the picture at the top is of Decentraland, and then Crypto Voxels are both platforms which are open source, and Decentraland is a blockchain based, and these are other places where you can potentially display and keep and store your digital fashion pieces. Again, for Decentraland and Crypto Voxels, it's only really been in the past few months that we're starting to see more emergence of either fashion creators or even brands kind of like merging into this space. The second option, and I guess this is the most, when I tell people what I do, they're like, oh, you put clothes on people so they can post it on social media. It's the most easily kind of like understood. This is an outfit that I was very kindly gifted from XR Couture, What you can't see underneath is the super cool glass slippers that I had on, but if you check out my Instagram, you can see them. And then the third place is, again, using kind of like magic mirror type technology. So how can we start to see these augmented layers by kind of increasing hardware, for example, inside stores? So this is Farfetch's technology inside Chanel in Paris. And so thinking about what are the use cases, what can we actually use digital fashion for? Again, this is kind of work in progress research for myself. I'm just kind of looking at the kind of things that people are asking for the code as well, but there's a lot of self-regulation in the chat, which is super cool. So yeah, the reason I put this together is because I want to know, what do consumers want to use digital fashion for, and what do businesses? And under businesses, I would also put like creators, designers, and also influencers, I guess, also too. And when I started to map this out, you can see that there's actually quite a lot of synergies between each of those groups. So both for consumers and business, sustainability, innovation, creativity, reducing risk. And what I mean in terms of reducing risk is typically, how can digital fashion be used as part of the consumer decision-making process? So could you try on something? Could you have a digital experience before you purchase it in order to de-risk your purchase? I think many of you in the audience might know about that quite terrifying statistic that 14% of e-commerce purchases are only purchased so that people can post pictures on social media. Then they typically are sent back to the store. And one of the impacts of that is sometimes when, in a fashion context, when things are sent back at a later date, if it's a high fashion piece, sometimes that piece then will have to be burnt. And people do that instead of it being kind of reduced in price as well. So there's like, it's almost like an iceberg, some of this stuff, basically. Access. So this is one of my favorite ones. And what I mean by access is that consumers, when I talk to them, said, I want to try digital fashion. I want to experience digital fashion with brands that I kind of aspire to create a relationship with. So typically those that fall in the luxury level, perhaps those that are a little bit kind of like crazy or directional or kind of like high fashion. And then other people said, I just want to, like, if you're kind of crazy about a brand, you kind of want to have a relationship with them on every type of touch point and kind of experience and kind of create a connection in many different places. And then the other part as well, and I guess it's something that we can see as many brands I try to kind of like jump after that kind of 1/3 of the world's population who are gamers, is that for a luxury brand or even for a regular fashion brand, getting a new audience, particularly if it's a younger audience, particularly if it's an audience that has access to capital and also maybe is persuasive, so has like a large kind of social capital circle, it kind of provides new pathways for that. And PR value, I think, talks for itself. So we are still in the very early stages of this sector. And when I pitch to fashion brands at the moment, I'm like, you can make history, like be first in this marketplace to do something different, to do something special with digital fashion. And then if we look at just the kind of business specific ones, we can see that efficiency is definitely a key driver. And I think if you're interested in this area, if you follow one of the journalists, Brooke Roberts-Islam, she writes a lot about this specifically. I think also if you look at PVH Group, they write again, not write, they do actually publish quite a lot of open source things about their commitment to going fully digital for their sampling, for example, within the next couple of years. And the thing that I'm probably most excited about is how can we use digital fashion to create a new revenue stream for a business, basically. And the different ways that we can do that I've listed on the right-hand side. So creating a digital twin, I can see a vision in the future that when you buy a physical product, that maybe you get a digital version of it as well, particularly if anyone in the audience wants a wardrobe-like share from Clueless, where you can choose what you want to wear digitally before you decide to put it on. Or maybe you have an AI or a personal assistant in a kind of Blade Runner-esque style who will choose your outfits for you in the morning. Samples, prototyping, I've talked about marketing and experience. I guess I have a couple of examples on the next slide. So AZ Factory is Albert Elbaz's new brand, which was launched in Fashion Week in February. And he partnered with Dematerialised, which is the kind of service arm, if you like, of Ada. So they integrated digital prototyping and also using digital in a lot of their marketing materials and in their show as well. So have a look at them. They have quite a humorous kind of Instagram account as well. On the top right-hand side, I guess you probably will have read a lot about how COVID had to make people pivot, particularly those who rely a lot on wholesale sales, to think about how can we sell our products to buyers who aren't able to travel to fashion shows or to basically see and touch the collection physically in order to buy it. So Only the Brave group were very forward thinking in this context and worked with some of their other brands like Crochet to create these hyper realistic virtual showrooms, and they're working. Although some of the buyers said there was a kind of initial reticence, it is working. So I think that's a really positive sign. And then again, a lot of people will have read about Balenciaga, and they decided to show their collection towards the end of last year as a video game as well. So showing again a different way to introduce digital fashion garments as part of the theater of brand marketing. So what are the market signals? This is one of my favorite quotes from Kerry. He does have quite a lot of good sound bites, but I guess one of the things that many of us at the Dematerialized and some of the other key players in the space are driven by this notion that oversupply is a problem, overconsumption is a problem, and providing an alternative way to experience digital fashion or even physical fashion or even just fashion can only be a good thing, I hope. Some kind of market signals, they might be kind of figures and facts that you've kind of known about already, but the in-game virtual goods market was estimated to be 50 to 75 billion last year. If you are interested in this space, there's a really good interactive website by BNP Paribas it's called the Digital Atelier. And that has loads of kind of research, and obviously, and not obviously, but their newsletter is probably one of the other most positive things that I use. It shows as well that 2.5 billion active accounts in the virtual economy, and it lists out exactly who those people are. I've already talked about the impact of COVID-19 on fashion shows and showrooms. What I want to see from brands is, okay, you have those digital assets now. How can you continue to use them within your supply and demand chain so they don't just sit on a hard drive somewhere after you've done this one-off activation? There's some really encouraging research from the Fabricant, from DressX, which suggests that virtual goods consume between 90 to 95% less resources than physical. I think there's still a slight question mark when you add on things like paying in cryptocurrency, perhaps using something like advanced AI on your website for perhaps how you experience, or automated AI style dressing. That might kind of like change a little bit. And again, at the Dematerialized, that's a kind of mission of ours to try and look into that and kind of research that as well. And again, yeah, this scary figure that last year 150 billion garments were manufactured, which is like 20 garments for every person on this planet. Again, a really interesting market signal, and something that is a space that I'm kind of very actively observing at the moment is the crypto art space. And maybe give a shout out at this precise moment in time to Lady Phoenix, who's one of the organizers of Crypto Fashion Week, who, if you don't follow any of her accounts, is described as one of the oracles of the crypto art space. And the reason that I think it's interesting is that dematerialization within fashion, within art, within music is kind of inevitable and a kind of progression. And nonfungible.com just created their most recent annual report, and this is a figure from that. And you can see the trading value is hugely significant. The number of people who are have a crypto wallet is also massively increasing. Last year, I didn't have a crypto wallet. Now I have a crypto wallet. And what are the consumer signals then? So this is a diagram that I reference quite a lot. It's from Thread Up, which is a kind of scaled vintage marketplace from the US. And every year they do an annual report that has lots of good kind of stats and facts and figures in it. And the reason that I kind of look at this is from 2018 to 2028, we can see amazing increases in terms of secondhand, which is super because I'm a big fan of vintage and watch this space for digital vintage and archive pieces. We can see department stores kind of struggling. We can also see that happen at the moment. Fast fashion kind of being stagnant and mid-price kind of reducing. Oft-price is being something that's increasing. My prediction is that by 2028, digital fashion will definitely be in that mix, even for like the whole range of types of customers. This is a little excerpt of some of the research that we've been doing, and if there are anybody from different luxury brand organizations tuning in, please look at this lovely donut diagram. Almost half of the people that we survey say luxury fashion is what they want to try first of all. And I guess on the left-hand side, you can see here that this notion of using using a digital experience to de-risk a physical purchase is the #1 reason. It also makes sense because if you think from a consumer perspective, it's kind of more understandable for people to think about how you use digital for that type of purpose. And then very excitingly, costume or vintage. So imagine getting into Versace's archives or Chanel's archives and being able to experience some of their pieces, even if that's inside a department store and a magic mirror experience, or if it's something that you can actually own. I think it would be really clever of different brands that have an amazing archive, or even brands that have gone out of business, as a way to regenerate themselves, is to put the items that they, the kind of design archives that they have as a blockchain NFT and put them out into the marketplace, either as a piece of crypto art or as a piece of crypto fashion. #2, I am always surprised when I see this figure. So people do say that sustainability is a reason that they want to try digital fashion. I think you need to be careful with surveys because quite often people try and please the survey owner in the experience. But you can see as well that trying something new, being innovative, and also communicating your personality is something that comes through strong in the research. And one of the ways that I kind of describe it is, if you remember this meme that I think, last year, maybe this time last year, became popular with thinking about how do we condition or curate each of our different identities on different platforms in order to impress, seduce different people. The evolution of this is going to be with avatars. It's going to be with digital fashion. It's going to be with a mixture of each of those. And I guess as an example, this is the start of my digital fashion collection. So on the left-hand side, I was very lucky to be gifted this piece from TJ3D, a Taiwanese company. This is my Zepeto avatar address X piece experience with Yux Net-a-Porter, and then this is another piece that I have with the green jacket is from Tribute Brands, and then underneath I have a dress from Cochet. So you can start to see again these kind of different blends of how you could potentially use these types of things in different organizations. So what's the catch? What's the downside? What are the challenges of kind of getting into this space? Number one is that criticism that I think isn't going to go overnight about the emperor's new clothes. So selling, and our social media accounts do sometimes get trolled by people that say, this is ridiculous. Like, what's the purpose of this? You're conning people with what you're doing. I personally hope and do believe that this kind of narrative will kind of change, just as we've seen how initially people were skeptical about streaming movies or streaming music. I guess some of the other things that I just wanted to call out is the digital fashion as a kind of concept by the kind of mass consumer group is still relatively low, and it still has a kind of air of confusion or kind of like shaking your head, things like that, basically. And obviously, where we see the highest penetration or understanding of virtual goods is in the gaming and crypto art space at the moment, but that is bleeding out as we speak, basically. Another kind of critical success factor of digital fashion is the virtual try-on experiences. So how realistic are they? Will depend on how shareable the output is. And so at the moment, they're not yet quite perfect, and they're also not yet completely scaled or available as a kind of enterprise solution. And if we think about the fashion ecosystem, digital fashion ecosystem in itself, it's still pretty kind of fragmented. So I know various different 3D fashion designers who are able to commit, or kind of like ask for very considerable day rates, and so they should for what they do, because there is it's starting to be an demand is outstripping supply. And that's another reason why we created the Dematerialized, to act as like a place where all these different people from the production area, from the consumption area, and from the usage and kind of ownership field can come together, so that the Dematerialized can be a one-stop shop, as a place where you can find out who is a 3D designer that you should create with, which avatar should you potentially kind of partner with. Will we see, for example, digital rental in the future? How will this link into different metaverses? So there's a lot that's unknown, and there's still kind of everything to kind of like play for, basically, in this space. And the last point there is that virtual goods can be very easily replicated. And again, we can see this debate happening a lot in the crypto art space, where that can be solved, reduced, fixed, is by making the virtual good as an NFT and connecting it basically to the blockchain. And the reason that I created the Dematerialized with my co-founder Marjorie, who is also the co-founder of the Luxo blockchain, is because I believe it's these two parts together of the asset and the infrastructure that's going to make this this sector kind of blossom, basically. So we created the Dematerialized, and it has all these dots in the logo because we want to create this community together. We want to kind of join the dots of basically this kind of fragmented ecosystem. And some of you will have been getting kind of in today, basically. I can see lots of different people trying to do lots of the different things at this precise moment in time. One of the kind of motives around what we wanted to create was that we didn't want to offer just a traditional e-commerce grid format. We really believe that now is the time, and the technology is there where we can offer something that is a little bit more playful, something that encourages you to explore and play, potentially to shop with other people at the same time in the space. There are a lot of really interesting kind of startups in this field, and if we look at the technology which is just been announced or revealed by the latest updates from players like Unreal Engine and Unity, we can see that, again, that fusion of game technology and retail and e-commerce is something that's going to change the nature of how we shop in the future. So our kind of mission in kind of simple terms is to make it really easy for anybody to discover in the first instance, because we know that not everybody kind of like knows where to find or what kind of digital fashion is available to experience. So thinking about what are the different utilities and places and use cases that you can use digital fashion, and then buying and selling digital fashion. So we're a two-way marketplace. So at the moment in our beta version, it's just business to consumer, which is operational. But for our next open beta, which will be in September, we will have a consumer to consumer functionality as well. So that we're really trying to provide that circular lifestyle and approach for each of the garments that we put forward. And obviously, as a part of that kind of secondary market, because we're attached to the Luxo blockchain, it means that if you're a creator on our platform, every time that product is resold, you'll be able to get a royalty for what you've created. And again, this is something that many people are trying to solve at the moment, but we have a functionality after you've purchased our garment where you can port it into different environments. So at the moment, you can port it into Sansar and VR chat. So this notion of interoperability of what are the different places that you can take it into. And we're currently speaking with various different other metaverse providers and games publishers who currently have a closed wall environment to see if we can kind of basically break down those walls. And so last of all, what the fuck is an NFT? So a lot of people aren't kind of quite sure what that is. And I'll do my best, although normally when I have my co-founder, Marjorie, I deflect these kind of questions to her. So NFT stands for a non-fungible token. And the way that I kind of try and think about it is it's something which it's a unique digital identifier. So kind of like a passport basically for an asset or a product, and something that really helps storytell the provenance of a specific garment. It's linked to obviously the notion of Web3, because the way that the identifier is produced or minted on the blockchain is done in a decentralized way. So from the way that it's kind of programmed behind the scenes. And I guess one of the things that's super interesting about a non-fungible token is that it kind of acts almost like a computer program in itself. So what that means for digital fashion is that in the future, we can have garments which are reactive to the environment. We can have garments which can be bred with one another to create hybrid Frankenstein, like true collaborative kind of like products. And in the not too distant future, we can have products that will be able to kind of like talk to each other as well. And I think for fashion, which has quite a problem sometimes with demonstrating the provenance of garments and campaigns, for example, like Who Made My Clothes, by minting your garment as an NFT, you can add different metadata, which can be words, it can be pictures, it could be videos, it could be an AR filter. You could see and storytell exactly who it is who's made your garment, what's the process that it's gone through, how many cups of tea they drank whilst they were making your product, what music they listened to. And I think that starts to give us a new relationship with garments, with accessories, with assets. And I think when we value something in that way, we take a different kind of relationship towards it. So I guess kind of ending on that notion is that the best is yet to come. We're only at the very beginning of this digital fashion journey, and there's everything to play for. So if you're a brand, if you're a designer, if you're a creative, if you're a influencer, please kind of like educate yourself about this space and think about how you can participate and how you can take part. And I think I'm just kind of like reading some of the kind of questions from this, but if anybody hasn't got about it, This is the code for those of you who kind of like can or want to claim your first digital garment from us, and or I think I saw a notification that the monolith has sold out already. So let's see. But yeah, that's the end for me. I'm happy to maybe stay on for another 15 minutes or something and answer any questions that anybody has. I will quit sharing my screen. Let's see. Sold out already. Yeah, does anyone have any questions that I can try to answer? Or comments or provocations? Love a provocation. If you want to get in contact, I mean, just go on any of our Instagram profiles or Twitter. We always check DMs, no problem. I don't want to go over profile management because that's not my specialist area. So I guess if there are lots of questions about that, perhaps me and Marjorie can do like an Ask Me Anything on Instagram in the next little while, or I'll ask you to kind of tune in for the next Luxo session. Is your goal to partner with a fashion house directly? So for example, for the September beta, open beta, we want to represent the widest kind of pyramid of digital fashion. So we will have items that will be €1, and we will have an item which will be 1 million euros. And within that, we want to have a mixture of digital first brands, archive pieces, luxury brands that people know. So that's what Marjorie and I are very busy kind of doing just now, having conversations with brands that we started last year, having conversations with last year in order to get them on the platform. And then early 2021 is when we'll open the platform out to any creator, basically, to put themselves on the platform. What else? What metaverses are there to work with? So there are kind of like new ones kind of coming out. Someone who I'm following a lot on Clubhouse and on Twitter is Ryan Gill. So have a look at him. I think the other ones that I mentioned as well, Crypto Voxels, Decentraland. It'll be interesting to see if someone tries to build a fashion-specific metaverse. I think in the next few months we'll see kind of a lot of development in this area. People are asking, when can I actually wear the garment? Well, we're speaking, so we have an internal research and development team who are working on this, and we are also testing other APIs which are available in the marketplace. The reason we haven't released that functionality yet is that we want it to be completely solid. We want it to be so that every user that tries it is super happy. So the best thing I can say is watch this space. You're in our ecosystem now, so we'll send you a message as soon as we put that functionality live. Will there be Orlando's? Your question, sorry, is for more of a Luxo question, but the testnet will migrate to the mainnet. How are brands approaching the idea? With a bit of trepidation and excitement. Again, whenever I talk to brands, everybody says, we're interested, it's exciting, I believe in it, but they're like, we don't want to be first. So I think just as we've seen with the Balenciaga, and I think also with Gucci and Burberry, those kind of brands which are experimental with digital, the more people who kind of see success, and success doesn't necessarily always come down to sales. I think it also comes down to, excuse me, more experiential measures like how happy you are, how long you stayed on that platform, how many other people you told about it. So I guess the slide that I said before about the different use cases, so using it as a marketing tool, using it digital fashion as a revenue stream, and then using it earlier in the product development process are the different things that I would say. What are you most excited about for the future of Dematerialized? For me, it has to be the archive vintage pieces, because ironic, I don't know if you can see in the background here, I have a sewing machine, I have a massive vintage collection, but I also love digital too. And so to see those kind of worlds merge together, I think will be super interesting. In terms of limited editions and open editions, I think for the first launch, we are planning to do mostly probably 80% limited editions and 20% open editions. In our research, that's what's come through. Most people, the scarcity element and the desirability is higher, obviously, as a limited edition. Yes, Ruben, you volunteered to be first. Excellent. Message us. Any comments about your other advisors for the Dematerialized and the value that they bring to the protocol? I guess, I mean, we were very strategic about who we sought out to get as our advisors. So we've chosen people who are specialists in their field and who also are kind of, I don't know, considered a little bit of as a renegade, because I think you need people who have an appetite to kind of like risk and creativity in order to take some of these ideas forward. And then obviously, because Dematerialized works so closely with Luxo as our blockchain infrastructure partner, we're able to also get advice and knowledge from Luxo's very exciting and high-level advisors as well. Who else? Are we working with Asia? I mean, one of our amazing advisors is based out of Singapore. I think in terms of how we're working with Asia is we're looking at how companies like Ada, for example, and how the behavior of buying virtual goods, whether that's buying kind of like roses for your favorite KOL, for example, is something that's interesting, how that behavior might be interesting to be represented. I think we're also looking at creators and kind of influencers in those areas. But yeah, I mean, the good thing about digital is the geographical boundaries don't make any sense. So I think what we need to be considerate of, and something that we've been thinking about in our UX and design process, is how we can make our site and our experience as easily accessible for anybody, no matter kind of what language they're coming to our platform in. Will Europe lead adoption in this space, or do you see the US? Super cool question. I mean, I think that Europeans are more, I'm sorry to the Americans in the audience, are a bit more kind of like creative, more in the maybe avant-garde sense in this sense, whereas American brands are just basically shit hot at the commercialization of ideas. And so I think this kind of quite historical kind of like difference is something that we see, or I see specifically in relation to fashion brands. So I guess when I pitch to American brands, I'm a bit more KPI based. And when I'm pitching to European brands, it's a lot more about creativity and a bit more of the softer stuff. What's the difference between us and DressX? So the difference with us is that DressX's collections and the amazing kind of stuff that they do isn't at the moment created as an NFT. So what you're buying is a picture of you in that garment. And I've done that. I've done that with two different pieces. And I think I've said before in a couple of other interviews that actually there is something to be said from a consumer perspective about purchasing something and then the anticipation of waiting to see what you look like in that specific piece. And that kind of like unboxing moment, which is something that we kind of try to build into our monolith drop today. So I don't know if that kind of answers you, but yeah, I mean, what we're trying to do with Dematerialized is perhaps be a wider ecosystem than what DressX's kind of current mission is, and that we want to be that kind of central point for, if you want to know anything about digital fashion, so if you're a creator, if you're an influencer, if you're a brand, that we can provide that central kind of directory and also choice. And then because of our work in partnership with Luxo, we're building that back-end infrastructure. Well, not we're building, we have built that back-end infrastructure so that basically our platform works for itself. So that if you are a creator that wants to mint your own NFTs and sell them on our platform, that's feasible, and it's super easy and super straightforward for you to do. The hard part is, I guess, kind of designing the pieces in the first instance, and then figuring out what to sell them for, how many pieces to release, etc. Cryptic, the good, you're getting right into the space. Agree, Sheeran's design was super cool. I like this music video idea, definitely. I think as well as we start to see that kind of real-time tracking and real-time rendering, to see that happening on kind of like live streamed performances with digital fashion is something that's going to happen. The prices of NFC garments can be much cheaper, yeah, than traditional clothing. Exactly. I think that democratization in terms of access, and I guess I demonstrated that when I showed you the luxury examples of how much those pieces are either in game or as a skin, or I do see that in the very near future we'll be paying for filters as well, whether that's on Zoom or any of the other kind of like a branded filter on Zoom for your meetings is something that many of our consumer bases and beta testers have kind of asked for. How will creators see real financial benefits when crypto is so volatile? Well, one of the things that's really good about our platform is that the value of the piece is not linked to the crypto market. And in fact, one of the things that we were very cognizant of earlier on is that we've built the platform, and for some of you who have purchased on it today, we accept crypto and we accept regular fiat currency as well. And just like a couple of the other NFT marketplaces, I mean, if you didn't have a crypto wallet, there's very few NFT art marketplaces that you could purchase from. So we wanted to be kind of like different in that context. And if you are a creator, it's very feasible that you don't need to have a crypto wallet. You can create your pieces, you can upload them on our platform. It's us that does the kind of the hard work, if you like, of being able to sell them and process that transaction in multiple currencies. So hopefully that answers your question. Are we going to mint more monoliths? Well, I'll need to speak to Mega Retina Burn. We wouldn't mint the same one again, because I think that defeats the purpose of the scarcity or the excitement of getting one in the first instance. So if we were going to do another monolith, we would have to change it significantly so that it looked and felt differently. Can you explain how the process of designing of digital clothes looks like? Yeah, I mean, if you watch back the video, I talked about virtualization, photogrammetry, and scanning. I would say that obviously the most accessible version of doing that is to teach yourself Clo 3D or Browseware or some of the other TG3Ds kind of like programs. And create it that way. I think if you're starting out as well, if you go to Show Studio or even Fabricant, they give you free downloads. So some are physical patterns and some are digital garments already that you can then kind of like play with. So if you're interested in that space, I guess that's something that you could kind of like look for and try out. And again, one of the amazing things about kind of the internet is that there's so much free content and education on self-educating yourself in this space, so that you, if that's something you wanted to do alongside something else that you did, that I think that would be feasible. Will all of the items on your platform be NFT? They certainly will. We think that that's the only way to move forward in this digital fashion arena, because you can, it's a win-win situation for every single stakeholder involved. So for the person who creates it, for the platform who sells it, and also for the people who buy it afterwards. Is it possible to pitch the environmental benefit of digital fashion over physical clothes? Yeah, definitely. I mean, I touched on it very, very lightly, and I think if you look at the Fabricants blog section, and also DressX publishes a sustainability report, and we're starting to see more research which is coming out in this area. So watch this space, and it's definitely something that we want to have ownership of it and leadership on in this space too. I mentioned in a past podcast about people wanting to wear digital fashion real time and augmented reality. But the tech isn't there yet. Can I predict how far out that will be? By the end of 2021, for sure. We're close. We're so close, it's exciting. Maybe 3 more minutes. Does anybody else have any other kind of questions you want to ask me about? Or I can ask you, what digital fashion pieces would you want to wear, whether it's a brand or an archive piece or a costume from history? The dematerialized mainnet question, hit up Luxo on Twitter for that. Where would be the best place to store a digital garment? So for us, again, that was one of the reasons that we've partnered with Luxo, is that the universal profile that they have is the place where we think is a really beautiful and easy way that you can store and also display your NFT collection. I think one of the things that I found personally when I was researching the crypto art market last year, and I can continually ask people in Clubhouse groups or rooms in the last little while, is that why are more people not trying to solve this problem of the utility post what you do with your digital asset, basically. So yeah, so for us, you can display it in the universal profile, which is part of the Luxo and Dematerialized infrastructure. And yeah, watch this space for other things or kind of places that are part of that to come. Will there be a way to merge 2 NFTs together to create one with more rarity? Yes. And again, watch this space within the next couple of months from us. Jean-Paul Gaultier, Mugler, interesting. Digital watches. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that was most touching when I first created a digital fashion activation in November 2019 was that a mother wrote to me and said, I really want to buy a piece. Can I buy a digital dress for my daughter for her Christmas? And I was like, so cute. Yes. So hopefully we can make things like that come true in the future. Oh, an outfit made of worms. Interesting. What about you? Anybody else for a worm outfit? Do you know who would like that? Christopher Rayburn is a brand that we've collaborated with in the past, and if anyone follows him, he keeps worms in his house and he has a section called Worm Watch. So I think he'd be like quite up for that as well. Well, yeah, I think I've ran out of steam.
Yeah, I want to be mindful of your time. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a great conversation, great presentation. Yeah, thank you much, Karina, for your insightful thoughts today on the space.
You can probably tell it's my favorite thing to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. You had a lot of great insights and really grateful to have you.
Super.
So yeah, so thanks everyone for watching. Just kind of wrap things up. This is Crypto Fashion Week. We're kind of finishing up the first runway of the day today. There's a few more events happening today. So we got some Clubhouse talks, and then we got another exhibition later tonight. So please stick around for that. And I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Luxo. They've been really great in helping us put this on. And thank you to Karina and the Dematerialized for being here and joining us for this amazing talk.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah.
We'll see you in one of the other sessions.
Sounds good. Have a good day.
Thanks. Bye.
See you, everyone.